have you on Fascinating Frontiers, episode 119. It's July 2nd, 2026. Let's look at what's new across the frontiers of space and science. A shoebox-sized probe will soon ride an asteroid flyby to test surface operations before the rock skims Earth in 2029. The European Space Agency has authorized Airbus Defence and Space to begin full development of the Aeolus 2 wind monitoring satellite as a follow-on to the original Aeolus mission. Aeolus 2 will be developed in partnership with EUMETSAT to deliver operational global wind data for improved weather forecasts and longer-term climate records. The first Aeolus satellite already demonstrated the first space-based wind LiDAR measurements from orbit. Engineers will now refine the instrument design and spacecraft bus for the next-generation platform. The next milestone is the system requirements review that will lock in final performance targets. On a different note, the European Space Agency has selected EMXYS to build Don Quixote, the first CubeSat designed to land and operate directly on an asteroid. The shoebox-sized spacecraft will be released by the Ramses mission onto Apophis ahead of the asteroid's 13 April 2029 Earth flyby. Once on the surface, Don Quixote will test mobility and measurement techniques in the asteroid's microgravity environment. The contract covers design, build, and integration with the larger Ramses spacecraft. Data from the lander will help refine models of asteroid internal structure ahead of any future deflection demonstrations. The European Space Agency's placement of a CubeSat on Apophis supplies the first opportunity to examine surface mechanics during a close planetary encounter. Don Quixote travels aboard the Ramses spacecraft and separates prior to the 2029 flyby, so it can touch down in weak gravity and evaluate mobility hardware. Measurements of surface composition and internal structure will feed directly into deflection models for future hazardous asteroids. The effort also shows how compact, inexpensive landers can supplement data from larger orbiting platforms. The NSF DOE Vera C. Rubin Observatory has begun full science operations for the Legacy Survey of Space and Time. More than 80 Japanese researchers are already analyzing early data through Subaru telescope collaboration agreements. Japanese engineers contributed software pipelines and detector calibration methods developed during Subaru operations. The wide-field LSST camera will repeatedly image the southern sky to track transients and map dark matter distributions. Follow-up observations with Subaru's detailed instruments are expected to sharpen discoveries from the survey's first year. Researchers have identified a new class of superpuff exoplanets with radii similar to Jupiter yet densities lower than cotton candy. These worlds orbit close to their stars, where intense radiation should strip atmospheres, yet the envelopes remain inflated. Transit and radial velocity measurements supplied the size and mass values that revealed the extreme low densities. The discovery challenges standard models of how gas giants retain heat and mass during migration. Follow-up spectroscopy with large telescopes will test whether the low densities come from extended hazy layers or internal heat sources. A University of Alabama in Huntsville study proposes that charged dust particles near the sun help transport energy into the corona. The Astrophysical Journal paper models how these grains interact with the solar magnetic field and plasma waves. Observations show the corona reaches millions of degrees while the surface stays at roughly 5,500 degrees Celsius, a long-standing puzzle. Dust trajectories calculated in the new work suggest repeated collisions and electromagnetic interactions could supply the missing heat. Future Parker Solar Probe passes closer to the Sun will search for direct signatures of these dust plasma couplings. Astronomers have compiled rotation periods and activity levels for thousands of stars to improve target selection for habitable zone planets. The catalog draws on data from multiple ground-based surveys and space photometry missions. Stars with lower activity produce steadier signals, making small planetary atmospheres easier to detect. The work directly supports planning for future missions that will measure transmission spectra of rocky worlds. The next step is cross-matching the catalog with upcoming transit surveys to prioritize the quietest host stars. NASA's James Webb Space Telescope has examined a planet orbiting the remnant of a sun-like star that has become a white dwarf. The data revealed the planet's atmosphere and orbital distance remained intact despite the star's earlier expansion and mass loss. Spectra show molecular features that survive the intense radiation and dynamical upheaval of the stellar transition. The system offers a rare glimpse of post-main sequence planetary evolution. Additional Webb cycles will map temperature variations across the planet's dayside to refine survival models. Measurements from the Chandra X-ray Observatory indicate the outer spiral arms of the Milky Way reach wider than earlier maps showed. Astronomers used precise distances to dust clouds absorbing X-rays to trace arm locations. The new positions imply the galaxy's disk is more extended than standard models assumed. Refined arm geometry will affect calculations of the galaxy's total mass and rotation curve. Follow-up observations with optical and radio telescopes will test the revised structure. If the Milky Way were scaled to the size of a dinner plate, a passing galaxy the size of a saucer would stretch our outer stars into ribbons hundreds of plate widths long. During a close flyby, the gravitational gradient across a galaxy pulls stars on the near side forward, while stars on the far side lag behind, creating two opposing streams of material. These tidal tails can extend tens to hundreds of thousands of light years and persist for hundreds of millions of years after the encounter. The process moves stars at speeds of tens of kilometers per second relative to the parent galaxy, enough to fling some into intergalactic space. We still do not know exactly how much dark matter is needed to keep the tails coherent versus letting them disperse into the cosmic web. A physicist at Texas Tech University used a NASA satellite in an unconventional observing mode to verify a massive exoplanet. The confirmation relied on timing variations in the host star's light rather than traditional radial velocity methods. The planet's mass places it in the super-Jupiter category, well above the deuterium burning limit. The technique opens a new pathway for characterizing wide-orbit giants around bright stars. Additional observations are planned to measure the planet's atmospheric properties. The monthly guide highlights a pre-dawn alignment of the Moon with planets, the return of a comet, prime Milky Way viewing, and a new viewing angle on Saturn's rings. Observers in the northern hemisphere can watch the comet climb higher each morning before dawn. Saturn's rings appear edge-on from Earth this month, reducing their apparent brightness. The guide also notes the best times to spot the galactic center low in the south. Monthly updates continue to track these changing geometries. The popular "What Did Hubble See on Your Birthday" page now features an updated design and expanded search options. Users can select any date and receive 5 images captured by the telescope on that calendar day across its mission history. The refreshed site includes improved navigation and larger preview thumbnails. The underlying archive draws from more than 3 decades of observations. The update makes the long-running public engagement tool easier to explore on mobile devices. Remember, the show covered Artemis on yesterday's episode. A fabric fragment from the 1903 Wright Flyer flew around the Moon aboard Artemis II and has now been returned to the National Air and Space Museum. The memento joins other mission keepsakes that link early aviation with current lunar exploration. NASA documented the artifact's journey to demonstrate continuity between historic and modern flight achievements. The swatch will be displayed alongside other flown objects in the museum's collection. Future Artemis missions plan similar legacy items. ULA's Atlas V lifted off from Cape Canaveral carrying 29 Amazon LEO broadband satellites on its final mission with a customer payload. The 551 configuration flight marked the end of that variant's operational use. The satellites join the growing constellation providing global internet coverage. Ground teams confirmed successful deployment and initial orbit insertion. Remaining Atlas V vehicles will now support only national security missions. A Falcon 9 launched from Vandenberg Space Force Base carrying another batch of 24 Starlink spacecraft. The first stage booster completed its recovery sequence after separation. Deployment was confirmed shortly after the upper stage reached the target orbit. The mission adds capacity to the constellation serving users in the Americas and Atlantic regions. SpaceX continues to increase launch cadence for the network. A major June release added individual description panels for every one of the 4,716 stars now cataloged in the app. The welcome screen and tutorial were also completely revised to improve first-time user experience. The tool lets the public explore known exoplanet systems with updated orbital and physical data. Developers incorporated new discoveries from recent transit and radial velocity surveys. Further updates are scheduled to keep the visualization current with ongoing observations. Next time, keep an eye on new data from the Parker Solar Probe's upcoming close passes as it searches for dust signatures near the Sun. That covers today's space and science news. Share this with a fellow space enthusiast if you found it interesting. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NERA Network. Links in the show notes. And before you go, this show is part of the NERA Network, a family of daily podcasts on tech, science, and markets, each one a short, sharp briefing you can finish on the commute. If today earned its place in your feed, here's your next listen. OmniView, a balanced daily world news briefing that takes every side seriously. Find every show free at neranetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.